This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSPORT Fan Network. TalkSPORT. Powered by fans.
Hello and welcome to this edition of the Fan Preview, where we speak to an opposition fan from another podcast to get their insight into their club. This week, we're delighted to be reunited with Joe Sayers from AlbionObsessed. Joe, how are we, first of all?
Hello, mate. Yes, not doing too bad, thank you. A very up and down season, so my mood is all over the place, to be honest. But yeah, not bad, mate. Not bad. How are you?
As well as both of our healths.
Yeah.
End of January, everyone's dying.
Exactly.
Just wanted to recap, obviously, Everton, Joe. I know we both had painful weekends in different reasons. I mean, we got absolutely. To say we got bummed is a light-hearted way of saying it by Bournemouth, who dumped 5 goals past us with no return, and yourselves losing 1-0 at home to Everton, who looked like it was a 22-man scrap at the end of it. What did you make of your fixture first?
Really frustrating. Just one of those things where a team's going to come and utilize their game plan perfectly, put 10 men behind the ball when they get their noses in front. And we just ran out of ideas completely as to how to break them down. There were a few really irritating moments where we were playing long balls towards Matoma. He was being marked by a 6'6" right back, so long balls weren't going to work at all. So a lot of sort of tactical naivety, I would say. Just really frustrating, and I think it's a struggle that a lot of teams have that aren't Man City, aren't Liverpool. Is you struggle to break down the teams that are going to come and put a low block. It's just a really frustrating afternoon, and that showed with the scrap at the end, which was probably the most exciting moment of our season.
I mean, that says a lot. I mean, I think it almost tells like two sides to the coin, because Bournemouth had no issue of breaking us down and thumped 5 goals past us, which is a bit of an unusual sight, to be honest. Brighton sit 9th this season, Joe, 34 points, and if I was to say from the naked eye, it just looks like you've been really inconsistent this season, where you win 2 games before Everton, but before that you was on a bit of a barren spell of drawing a lot of games. How would you sum up your season so far?
Exactly what you said. I mean, too many draws. But I think with the circumstances of bringing in a new manager, a lot of new players, everyone would probably look at us and think, well, Brighton have spent over £200 million in the summer. Why aren't they doing better? But there's a lot of players that haven't got Premier League experience that are getting to grips with Premier League football. We've had a lot of injuries as well, and I'm not going to sit here and make excuses. We've got a really good, deep squad, so we should have enough to be putting a few better performances together. And obviously we saw that against Ipswich, we saw it against Man United, we got some really good results against the relegation threatened teams. And then follow it up with a 1-0 loss to Everton. It's just, as you say, really inconsistent, really frustrating from our point of view, that there's been a few results this season, like the 2-2 draw against Wolves, the 2-2 draw against Leicester, where we were 2-0 up in like the 86th minute, and then we bottled a 2-goal lead. But then there's been some really amazing moments this season, beating Man City at home, doing the double over United, beating Spurs, drawing twice to Arsenal. So there's flashes of what we can see from this team. It's just about that consistency of putting that together for a run like you guys have. You know, you're challenging for Europe, and you're well up there, and I think you will be at the end of the season. Obviously, ignoring the 5-0 loss to Bournemouth, I think you'll be all right. But yeah, it's annoying because I look at Forest, I look at Bournemouth, and think that could be us.
Yeah, I mean it's funny because everyone's head fell off, rightly so, about losing 5-0 to Bournemouth. I don't not get that. But I also think like I'd rather lose 5-0 while we're third rather than 5-0 when we're like 16th and getting chased by Everton or Wolves or Leicester or Ipswich down there. So there's like, I don't know, peaks and troughs, I guess, to this whole football malarkey, and especially being at the top. So I don't mind that. I saw you put a tweet out the other day, Joe, because we obviously follow each other, and you said something that you were wrong about Fabian Hurzeler. And I think this was after the Man United game. I couldn't find, obviously, the original tweet that you were talking about, but I would like you to go a bit more into depth of that, because I think it's, like you say, this season there's been so many new factors for Brighton, new manager, a lot of money spent on a lot of players who have not been in the league or have been in the league and just not got the opportunity in terms of like Yakuba Minter. What was you wrong about, or what did you think you was right about in the first place?
So I lost my head completely when we lost 3-1 at home to Crystal Palace. And you can probably imagine why I lost my head, because we lost 3-1 to Crystal Palace. And it was on the back of some other really disappointing results, as I mentioned about the Wolves game, the Leicester game away from home. So I'd reached what I thought was the end of my tether. And I said that I'd completely lost faith in him. But I got over the anger, I think, of the terrible loss to Crystal Palace, and maybe thought about what I'd said a little bit. And I think, me included, as I say, we need to be a little bit more patient, because we have to realise that, you know, we've lost Pascal Gross, we lost Billy Gilmore, we've lost a very influential figure in Roberto De Zerbi, and we're almost having to start again. We've given the manager the best possible platform to start again, spending so much money. And I'm sure De Zerbi would have absolutely loved us to have spent what we spent with Fabian Hurzeler, with him. But then we have to realise, you know, what we're up against this season. There's a lot of teams completely inconsistent. Look at Spurs, look at United, look at the run City had. This season in the Premier League has been weird for a lot of teams. So I think, looking at that, I'm more willing to give Fabian a little bit more time, and he's proven me wrong in terms of the results that he can grind out at really important moments. We've seen a really scrappy 1-0 win away at St James's Park. We've seen us, you know, go toe-to-toe with Arsenal and stay in the game and get a draw. We've seen us go to United, and I know a lot of teams have done it this season, but we've gone to Old Trafford and picked up 3 points and done the double over them. So I think there's a lot that I can look at to say, yeah, he does deserve more time. And I think this season for me will be a write-off. I think if we finish anywhere between 12th and 8th, it will be a good season, and then we go again next year.
Yeah, and I think those players will come into fruition next year because they've got a bit more experience and a bit more time with the squad. I think left back has been a big issue with you this season. I think Cardioglu's been injured a lot. The Stupinen seems to be a little bit in and out of the team, or injured all the time as well. What's it like having a manager, by the way, Joe? I mean, he's younger than me, so I can't speak for yourself because I don't know how old you are. But he's younger than me. What's it like having a manager and actually going, oh, do you know what? The manager's really young. We need to give him more time, similar to how you give players who are like 21, 22, and you're like, oh yeah, they're still young. Because it must be a bit of a different, I don't know, way of thinking about it, because you think, well, managers normally when they're like what, mid-40s or 50s or whatever, you're like, well, they should know better. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that's probably why we give him that little bit more patience, is because that he is only, as the Sky Sports and everyone like that keeps mentioning, he is only 31. He's 2 years older than me, for your information. So same age as my brother. So that's really weird. So yeah, I think you have to allow him the time to learn. There's been a lot of times this season where he's had to learn lessons very harshly and very quickly. But I think that will only do him the world of good going forwards. And I think he's landed himself a club that is going to allow him time. No matter how much pressure that the fans put on of he's not the right man or whatever, Tony Bloom will give him the time. If he doesn't speak against Tony Bloom, that's what we saw with Roberto De Zerbi at the end of last season. Bloom didn't want to work with him anymore because he wanted to stray so far away from the club's ethos, transfer-wise, that it just wouldn't work. So if he's going to be a man that's going to align with the club's vision, he will get all the time in the world. Same happened with Graham Potter. There were moments early on with Graham Potter where we didn't win at home for a whole calendar year, and he was given the time. And when he left us in a really good place. And then we got Europe that year. And I'll go out and say it, if we kept Graham Potter that season, I think we still would have got Europe. So this club has a vision, and those visions 9 times out of 10 pay off. So I think we have to trust the club and trust their judgment, because it's worked so many times, and I don't think they've given us reason not to believe in them.
What was the transfer ethos that De Zerbi wanted to stray away from? Because obviously, that for me, when you say that off the bat, you're like, well, you spent 200 million quid on a load of wonder kids. Did he just not want to spend it on wonder kids? Is that what it was?
I think he wanted to spend big transfer fees on bigger players. So, for example, only signing, 4 players for £50 million each, rather than we've spent 210, give or take, on like 11, 12 players that are going to improve and have a very high ceiling. So that stays within what the club do and have done for a very long time. We were in that position because obviously we sold Caicedo, we'd sold McAllister, Sanchez, Cucurella, Potter, and our profits last season were ridiculous. So we went into a very healthy transfer window where a lot of teams were having to sell. And that's why we saw Brighton spend that much money. It wasn't what the media are saying of, Brighton might be changing their way of doing business. It's not. It's just that we had that sort of margin where we could go, let's really invest in the squad because we've got the opportunity to now. But yeah, as I say, I think De Zerbi just wanted the big players for the big moments rather than thinking long term.
Tony Bloom is playing Football Manager as my heart desires. Just buy kids any player that's under like 24. I don't like, or 23 or whatever. I don't buy anyone ever older. Massive resale value will improve the squad over time, and then you'll just waltz to like the Premier League or something in a few years' time, I'm sure, with all these players at your home. Are Brighton still trying to play the same way, Joe? I try to watch as many highlights as I can every week from every Premier League side if they're not on telly or anything, and it seems like Brighton are still trying to very much play the same way, out through the back, out through the thirds, and passing, possession-based sort of football with that high line. Is that still the case now? Yeah,
but we also see a few switch-ups from time to time, whereas De Zerbi would be very much like, you go out there and you play this way for 90 minutes and that is going to be the way, and that's the only way. I think we've seen Fabian Hurzeler change things tactically when he's needed to. We've been a lot more direct when we've needed to this season. I don't know if you saw our first goal against Man United a couple of weeks ago, but that was very much a long ball over the top. Matoma ran onto it, straight across to Minter, bang, goal. We never saw that under De Zerbi. So I think there's a lot more fluidity. He's changed the shape in game as well, which sometimes hasn't worked, sometimes has. So yeah, I think we're very sort of Jekyll and Hyde this season. We could turn up and be world beaters, or we could turn up and look completely amateur. So yeah, I wonder what team turns up at the City ground this weekend.
Well, yeah, likewise. I mean, because we need a response after our drubbing from Bournemouth, and Nuno was absolutely fuming after the game. I don't blame him, but also with a calm nature at the same time. But when we met in September, Joe, it was a 2-2 draw at the Amex with a lot of a lot of things happening. Obviously, Morgan Gibbs-White ended up getting sent off in that game for a second yellow card after Anthony Taylor put his nose in it. What did you think of that game, and also what did you think of that incident in itself? Because I think it really infuriated a lot of Forest fans on the day, and I think it divided a lot of opinion, even across our own fan base, where people were like, well, it was a daft challenge to make, he shouldn't have made it, but also then the other half were like, well, he got the ball, Rob Jones signally got the ball, and then Anthony Taylor stuck his nose in it. So what was your opinion of that game overall?
Yeah, gosh, you've taken me back there now. I can't overly remember exactly what happened in that red card challenge. I think I remember thinking that it was definitely soft, but you can't really give the referees or VAR the decision to make, because they will always try and take the limelight. And it's been definitely a talking point in the Albion Obsessed podcast this season, is the consistency of the application of the rules. So I can understand why you guys were frustrated with that for sure. It was a game that sort of went one way, then went the other, and I think you took the lead, and then we scored 2 sort of goals in quick succession. I think it was annoying the way that we conceded. I think it was a counter attack and then across to Souza, was it that scored?
Yes, Souza scored.
Yeah. So frustrating to lose a couple of points from a winning position, but obviously the season that you guys have had, we look back on that and go, actually, yeah, we done all right. We got a draw. So I think at the time, hard to take, but when you look back at it, it was probably a fair result.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the game, and I thought it was a good day out. To be fair, I mean, I don't enjoy your ground as such, because there's no pubs or anything to go to. Someone needs to invest; they'll make a killing on match days. Just putting it out there for any Brighton fans that have got any ideas, or any business people. But it's coming to the end of the transfer window, Joe. In the next, I think it ends on the 3rd of February, doesn't it? This week. It keeps getting like longer and longer. I don't get it, but are Brighton looking to do any deals before the end of the window, or was the summer enough?
Yeah, I mean we've spent a lot of Uncle Tony's money, and I think we should probably be happy with what we've got. I mean, I think that there's a couple names in the fray. There's a couple of strikers that we're looking at Zimas from I can't remember where he's from, somewhere. I think he's actually in the second Bundesliga. So again, a young wonder kid who's lighting up a lower league, and hopefully comes in and does the business for us. I would expect a striker to come in if we let Evan Ferguson go. It remains to be seen whether that's going to be permanent or a loan. Personally, I think it would be an absolute farce if we let him go permanently. Everybody knows his ceiling. Everybody knows his potential. So we absolutely have to keep him and get him some game time, get him back, and see what he can do. And there's also a centre back that we're linked with, Cashin from Derby. So yeah, it seems that they've just brought in a centre back to replace him. And apparently, according to a lot of Derby County sources, he was saying his goodbyes. So fingers crossed that we can get another centre back in, because I think that's defensively has been where we've suffered probably the most. So if we can get another option in there, we'll probably be happy with that. But I don't expect like crazy deals going on like the summer.
I just wanted to touch on Evan Ferguson, because we've been linked with him, and a lot of Forest fans have said, like, if we're going to get a striker that's similar to Wood that might be a little bit more mobile, he'd be perfect. But people are saying, like, we need to, if we're going to get him, it has to be like a loan with an option to buy or an obligation to buy, because it's pointless getting a player from another Premier League side, especially someone that's so close to you in the league almost, and improving their play and then just sending him back, if you know what I mean. But Evan Ferguson's obviously had his injury issues for the last 2 seasons, I would say. What's been his problem? And then also, what would it cost, do you think, for him to leave the Amex this window, never mind the summer?
Good questions. His problem has been, first of all, injuries. I think last season he just couldn't get a clean run in the side. But when he did have a run in the side, and especially when he played next to João Pedro, they were a very sort of big force to be reckoned with, and we had a lot of sort of goal involvements between the two. I think even at your ground, I think there was a combination of the two that sort of caused a little bit of havoc. And then, just injuries, and then obviously the change of manager wasn't fit during pre-season, so probably couldn't impress Hurzeler the way he wanted to, and didn't hit the season. Didn't hit the ground running at the start of the season. So it's been a weird one because obviously we've seen what Evan Ferguson can do under Roberto De Zerbi, and as I say, it's sort of spoken about his ceiling. It's so high. I think he could probably be, if given the right manager and the right team, that one of the best strikers in the Premier League. So that's why I think Brighton fans are frustrated as to why he keeps getting these injuries and is now being linked with a move away. So I think he wants to go and play football, whether that be permanently. I think if it's permanently, it would cost a lot of money. I think it would probably be around 50 to 60 million if someone wanted to sign him. We're not open to selling him, but I think we're willing to listen to big offers. So I think that gives Brighton fans a lot of sort of comfort in that we want him to go and play football, and we know that he can come back and be a big striker for us. So like you say, why would we send him to a Premier League rival who are challenging for Europe? And that's also where we want to be. That seems ridiculous. I think he's more likely to go abroad. But yeah, it remains to be seen. That there's a lot of fine details that we need to iron out, and where will ever Ferguson be at the end of it? I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, I mean the Evan Ferguson I saw last season at the City Ground, who scored a pretty good goal. I thought I'd be wanting to come and help us out, but like you say, like I've said, it wouldn't make no sense without a permanent transfer and without his injury issues being like behind him, which is always a difficult thing in football. Anyway, we've been more linked to Douglas Luiz and Matthias Cunha this window, which is still a little bit of a pinch myself kind of moment when I see that in the paper. But I'm just going to get into your team from last week, Joe. I just want to talk about some team stuff that could be potential at the weekend. But this is your team against Brighton. I'll just read out for the audio listeners. So Bart Verbruggen was in goal in a 4-2-3-1. Joel Veltman, Paul Van Ecke, Lewis Dunk, and Tariq Lamptey at the back. Carlos Baliba, and I can never say his name, Ayari in centre midfield, the Swedish lad, young Swedish lad. Gruder, João Pedro, Matoma behind Danny Welbeck up front. Do you expect this sort of team to line up this coming weekend at the City Ground, or do you expect some changes? Because I know Brighton have been, I don't know if you've been able to choose a consistent 11 every single week. It seems like one player gets injured, another kind of returns, or someone impresses off the bench, so they get a start. It just seems a little bit all over the shop in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, attacking wise, we've just got such a massive pool of talent that we can choose from. So I think that's probably frustrating for Hurzeler because he wants them all to be starting and he wants them all to be contributing. I think what we saw against Everton was Gruder he wasn't overly effective. So I think we'll either see Jorginho Rutter or Yankuba Minter start in his position. I would probably prefer Yankuba Minter to start and hopefully have Jorginho as an option off the bench because he's been really effective from there this season for sure. That midfield pairing has been brilliant this season. I've had a few question marks over Yasin Ayari at times this season, but especially in the last couple of months, he's really proving to be a great option, winning the ball back and progressing the ball up the pitch. Tariq Lamptey's been fantastic at left back when played there, I think across his whole Brighton career. So his link up with Matoma especially was good in the first 25 minutes last weekend. So I wouldn't be disappointed to see that. and Joel Veltman in the side. I mean, he cost us 900,000 Great British pounds. People talk about Pascal Gross being Brighton's best ever signing for only 3 million. Joel Veltman for under 1 million has been worth his weight in gold and some. So I love to see him start. But I expect very much the same. Maybe just Minter it in for Gruder.
I love that both our right backs combined a cost of £900,000, and they've been both brilliant. Then, so
there you go.
Reiner costing nothing and can play both sides and is just pure vibes. But when he has a bad game, he has a stinker, like he did last week, along with 10 other players or 15 or whatever you want to call it. How many of us have come on? Because no one really impressed. Who would you say has been your breakout player from your squad this season? Because I kind of look towards Carlos Baleba and feel like he's come on massive leaps and bounds since he come in last season, where he was maybe just trying to get to grips with it, but this season he looks like he's the mainstay, especially in that centre midfield where he has had to replace Pascal Gross and then also Moises Caicedo and Alexis McAllister in the last few years. It seems like he had to fill many a big shoe.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the players that have been and gone, and they were all excellent for us. And it is big pressure for these young players to come in and to do the same thing. Carlos has been fantastic this season. Probably we look at him and think that he's got maybe even a higher ceiling than Moises Caicedo. There was a report yesterday that Chelsea have yet again made an inquiry, and apparently it was laughed away. So we'll take that for sure. I hope we hold firm with Carlos, because I don't think we can keep doing this thing of letting him go for a big fee, bringing in another person. But we do have Malik Yalkouye, who is out at Sturm Graz on loan. And he's really impressing over there. So don't be surprised if we're talking about Malik Yalkouye next season instead of Carlos Baleba. I think the one I want to highlight, though, is probably someone that doesn't get spoken about much is Bart Verbruggen. Is nailed down the number one spot this season. He had to deal with De Zerbi sort of chopping and changing last year, which was frustrating for fans, probably frustrating for him. I mean, he's the Dutch number one, and we've got him at our football club, and he's only 23 years old. So he's, again, got a very high ceiling. There's, I think, Bayern Munich, Barcelona stiffing around him. So I don't know how long we can keep him for, but he's been fantastic at points this season. Still showing a little bit of immaturity here and there. There's been a few errors that have led directly to goals, but I think that's exactly what happens if you're a goalkeeper. If you make an error, it's going to be a goal. So we love Bart, and he's made some fantastic saves this season. I don't know if you watched our game against Ipswich, but he made a fantastic save down to his left hand side and sort of clawed the ball away. I think it almost went out for a throw on, so it was incredible. There's my couple of players that have broken out this season.
I think as well, like with a goalkeeper and two centre halves, I think it's just imperative you keep them together as long as you possibly can, because of their chemistry and everything. And then, like you said, with goalkeepers, is if they make a mistake, it does lead to a goal. And then also how Brighton want to play, it's going to be more high risk and big catastrophe when it goes wrong, I guess. But that's just how it goes. I mean, but we've reaped the benefits of keeping those players together, like Murillo, Milenkovic and Sells. It's just look our defence has been really good, apart from last week, obviously. I just wanted to get your thoughts on Forest this season. Obviously, we're somehow in nosebleed territory in third, even though we lost last week. What have you made of us this season so far?
I think you've been absolutely excellent. Nuno's proven that he is a very, very good coach. Obviously, he didn't have a great time at Spurs, and probably a lot of the football world looked at him and thought, are you the coach that you were at Wolves? I think he's come to Forest and bided his time, and now he's showing, he can put a squad together and put a run together that's going to lead you. I would almost guarantee that you'll get Europe this year, some form of Europe. And I love Nuno. I think he's just such a endearing character, and I'm sure you guys are absolutely loving having him at your football club. And Chris Wood has been lighting up the world, and we remember Chris Wood from our time in League One. He came on loan to us for 6 months and helped us on our way to the League One title. So I like seeing him do well. And you've just got a really good squad with a lot of characters that are quite likable. You've spoken about your right back, Anya, and I've seen a couple of his sort of post-match celebrations, and he just looks like a fantastic character as well. So I think if you're looking at a squad that you want to get Europe other than your own, I think Forest is a club that you definitely want to do well. So yeah, I'm delighted for you guys, and I hope you enjoy some sort of Europe next season.
It'd be a bit of a party, I think, around Nottingham and then around the rest of Europe, and God knows where. I mean, you lot enjoyed your time, I imagine, in the Europa League. I mean, who do you look at from our squad and go, well, I don't want them to get on the ball too much, because it's such a contrasting styles of football. Like, a lot of people will probably look at Forest and go, they play really turgid, horrible football because they sit 10 man behind the ball. But then, like, as so many people have compared us to, like a coiled spring just waiting to just go, if you will. Who do you feel when you look at our team? Because I think we've started to realise our depth is because of how far we've just come in one season, rather than like making a small progression similar to how Brighton have. Players who have meant to be like backups look like they're really struggling now to compete at the top where we want to be, where we are now, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Chris Wood is the main guy that I'd point out. I think he's always going to pop up and threaten the goal. I know that he's had his moments in a Forest shirt where he's maybe not scored the chances that you'd expect him to score, but I can almost guarantee that he'll score against Brighton. I've spoken about wanting him to do well. I definitely don't want him to do well this weekend. But I think if you're a Brighton looking at goal scorers, you can almost guarantee they're going to score against us and ruin our day. So yeah, Chris Wood for me. But you've got such an incredible sort of attacking plethora around him that's going to get him those chances. So we've got to be careful, and we've got to nullify you where we think we can. And it's tough to do this year. And I know Bournemouth did it and did it well, but other points this season, you've lit the world on fire. So yeah, we've got to be careful.
I suppose it's just, I think it's just like a blueprint, really, where what teams have to do against us, and that's just be wary for the counter attack. I guess don't give the ball away in silly areas of the pitch and let us get forward. So it's a really hard balancing act, especially for both sides, I think, because we can't allow you to just cut through us like Bournemouth did last week. It was embarrassing half the time. I know I harped on about it a lot. I really shouldn't. I'll probably get pelters in the comments and all that. What's your prediction for Saturday, Joe? It's a rare 12:30 kickoff, I think, for Forest this season. We've not had very many of them, whereas I think Brighton have had quite a few, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I can't remember how many we've had, but there's definitely been a few. It's a tough one. Unfortunately, I won't be there, but I'll definitely be watching. I'm going to see my favourite bands that evening, so please don't ruin my day. Otherwise, I'm going to be watching my favourite band crying into my hands. I think it's going to be a tough game. Obviously, you guys want that reaction. We want a reaction after a disappointing game against Everton. So I think this one will play out very much similar to how it was at the Amex. I think it's going to be a 2-2 draw. But I have vowed to myself this season that when I go on opposition podcasts, I'm going to follow my heart. So I am going to predict a 2-1 win for the Albion.
I've predicted 2-1 to Forest and a bit of a rocket atmosphere because it's of the response that we need, and just because I think the players deserve it, to be honest. I know we've lost a few games this season, but we've also won a bloody lot, so that's good. Just a question I'm starting to ask now every opposition fan, because of it getting to the last 15 games or so of the season, Joe. Where will Brighton finish this season? And you can give me a bit of a range, because obviously it's so tight this season. I think from Arsenal or ourselves down to Fulham, it's only like 14 points. So it's anybody's game still. It's like the Championship almost. It's good. It's quite good, and I'm quite happy to be a part of that part of the table this time round.
Yeah, I think we're seeing maybe a slight gap form between 10th. I say slight is 2 points, but when you talk about it on the grand scheme of this season, that is a slight gap because it's been, as you say, so packed in amongst there. We're seeing a gap form between us and Man United in 12th. So I spoke earlier about where I expect us to finish. Probably, if I gave you a specific position, I would say 10th that we'll finish. But I think it could be anywhere between 11th and 8th, to be honest.
I know I shouldn't really ask this, but would you be a little bit disappointed with 10th, or are you quite happy with that? I know you said earlier about between finishing 12th and 8th or whatever it was. I think you said you'd be happy.
I think at the end of August or at the end of the transfer window, whenever that was, I probably would have been disappointed with 10th, given how much we'd spent and the players that we brought in. But looking at this season as a whole and how it's played out and what other teams are doing around us, I would be happy. And then, as I say, we go again next year.
That's fair enough. So Albion Obsessed everywhere: YouTube, Spotify, iTunes. Have I got that right?
Yeah, you can find us across most platforms. I think we're on most of them. Search Albion Obsessed if you want to listen to a load of people moan about Brighton and Hove Albion and Fabian Hurzeler. So yeah, good times.
Talking about wonder kids every week. It's great. Joe, thank you very much for joining us. Hopefully Forest, we're reporting on a Forest win back to winning ways come Sunday morning. But until next time, enjoy the rest of your weeks and we'll see you then. Come on, you Reds.